Hi, I'm Chris, welcome back to whatever the this is. I still don't know, but what I do know is that today I'm doing the mother of all videos. I'm telling you every single book I've read in 2022. I read 105. In 2021, I think I read like 60. This year I read 105, which is basically equivalent to 2 books a week. Kind of ate that, I know. This year my goal is still at 50. My goal every year will always be at 50. I don't know, I might up the ante next year, but I think I'm going to just keep it at 50. I'm going to tell you all 105 books that I read, and you're going to just sit here and watch, okay? I'm going to go in order from January through to December. However, I'm tracking this by using Goodreads on my laptop, and I don't know if they put rereads in the order of the time that you read it. I'm going to put my rereads in at the end. I don't want this intro to be too long, so I'm going to just go straight into it. The first series that I completed, I basically read each of these books, not necessarily one after the other, but this first book I read was the first book of the year, so I'm going to talk about it, and I'm going to just mention the series, and that is the final 3 books of the Briar You series by Elle Kennedy. I feel like my camera quality looks absolutely awful. You're gonna have to just bear with me. I'm sorry about it. I read The Risk. This was the first book of the year that I read. This is so like on brand for me because my favourite book of all time is obviously The Deal. Of course, I started last year reading Briar You, and then obviously after The Risk comes The Play, and after The Play comes The Dare. After The Risk, I read this book called Pray for Scars. This is book 2 in a series that is called Unsainted, and it's by KV Rose. It's kind of like a dark romance series. What did I rate this book? I gave it 2 stars. I hated it. The first book in this series is called These Monstrous Ties, and I read that in 2021, and I really liked it, but I left such a massive gap between those 2 books that I think Brave Scars kind of just got ruined, so I probably will not continue with this series, but I read it. After that was around the era where Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover came out, so of course I read that. I do on the paperback. I like this book. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. People were doing a lot with this book. I feel like people were saying that this was like a really good, like, oh my god, I cried, it was the best thing ever. You are a liar. Well, you're probably not a liar, you just have bad taste. It was fine. I wasn't crying. It wasn't bad by any means, but like people were saying that this is like the best piece of literature ever, and that is a straight up lie. Thing is, you have to take, when I say shit like that, you have to take it with a grain of salt, because my favourite book of all time is The Deal, and I know that that's a terrible book. You just have to take what I say with a grain of salt. After Reminders of Him, I then read Regretting You, also by Colleen Hoover. I also did not really care for Regretting You at all. I thought it was kind of boring. I also gave it 3 stars though, so I gave both of these books 3 stars, but this is a good 3 stars and this is a bad 3 stars. You see, my rating system's kind of fucked up like that. I don't know what you want me to do about it. After that, we took a bit of a turn. We read a literary fiction book because I am also a literary fiction girly. I read Norwegian Wood by Haruki Murakami. I thought this book was alright. I know I just said that I'm a literary fiction girl in that I read not like the other girls, but that's actually a lie. I read exactly like the other girls, and I am not a literary fiction girly, and therefore this was just a bit too much for me. Like, I didn't care. It was kind of depressing, but like also depressing, but it was kind of cool. But this was a bit dark. We were getting a bit dark here. I was like, oh my god. I also didn't really understand what was going on. Firstly, we're at like university, and then we're in like a mental hospital. I was like, okay, I'm not a literary fiction girly. Like, one of my favourite books of all time is A Little Life, but I am not by any means a literary fiction girly, and I'm gonna have to live with that. But like, it was good to expand my horizons, but this is why I don't expand my horizons that much, because when I do, I don't like it. I'm glad to say that I've read it. It's one of those books where I'm like, I'm happy I read it. I will never read it again. Moving on, I read the Elite Trilogy by Elephant and Brooke Blaine. You already know what I think about this series if you watched my favourite books of 2022 video. It's amazing. It's an MM romance. People call it Top Gun, but make it gay. It's about these fighter pilots who all get called to compete to find out who's like the best fighter pilot in the US, and we get a romance between 2 of the people there. It's like a Grumpy Sunshine kind of thing. It was so good. You all need to read it. I read It Happened One Summer and Hook, Line and Sinker by Tessa Bailey. This is the Bellinger sister series. I really like this book, It Happened One Summer. I think I gave it 5 stars. However, upon reinfection, upon reinfection, antibodies are produced faster in greater number, but also upon recollection, upon rethinking about this book, it was good, but it was not 5 stars, and so you have been demoted to 4 stars. I'm very harsh, my 5 stars now, I've decided, but this is 4 stars, 4.5 if you will. It is really good, and I really enjoyed it. Hook, Line and Sinker follows the sister of the main character in Happen One Summer, and it's a friends to lovers, and I do not care. I also gave this one 4 stars. Wow, this is a bad 4 stars. I would consider giving this 3 stars now. I bet if I reread this book, I'd probably like it, but I'm not going to reread it. So after that, I then read Bound by Honor by Cora Riley. This is the start, I guess, of my Cora Riley Born in Blood absolute fucking bonanza that I went on. I read Luca Vitiello, and then I waited a while, and then I read this book because I knew that this book and Luca Vitiello are basically the same story, just in different perspectives. So I wanted to like wait until, like, you know, Luca Vitiello was a little bit out of my mind so I could get into this, and I read it and I loved it. I gave it 4 stars. It is really good. It's like a forced marriage, or an arranged marriage, I guess is the right term, between this young girl and this like really scary mafia boss who's like about to be the leader of the New York mafia, and it's a romance from there, and it is really good. That was a really bad explanation, but it is really good, and this entire series, the Born in Blood Mafia Chronicles, is pretty good, and you'll see as the video goes on. I read quite a few books. Stay tuned. Then we have One of the Banes of My Existence, After We Collided by Anna Todd. I gave this book 2 stars. It's terrible. I own the book in paperback. I needed to read the series, so you'll see a couple more books. Can I like stop talking about it now? Then we have Culty. This is by Mariana Zapata. This is the second Mariana Zapata book I've ever read. This is a like coach athlete romance. It's football or soccer, whatever the fuck you want to call it. We're following Sal and Culty. Culty's like this famous footballer. Sal used to have a crush on him when she was like younger, and then he ends up being her like assistant coach on her team, and she hates him, and then they end up falling in love. But it is actually quite good. I gave it 4 stars because I kind of liked it. I do recommend this one. After I culted my heart out, I then decided to get bullied by Penelope Douglas. I literally do not remember a lot about this book, so sorry about it. It was fine. I do want to carry on with the rest of the series. I just don't know if I ever will, because I have so many more pressing books on my TBR before Rival. Sorry about it. After that, I read Waking Olivia by Elizabeth O'Rourke. This book really surprised me. I went into this book not really expecting much, and I came out absolutely loving it. Gave this one 4 stars as well. It's about this girl who gets kicked out of her university because she did something that you find out near the end of the book, and she ends up going to like a school that is in a lower division for track running. She's a runner. She's a track star. So she goes to a lower division school for her running, which is kind of terrible because she's a very good runner and everyone else in this school is fucking shit. And so it's like, I don't belong here, but I've been kicked out, so I have to come here. The issue is she also has like a lot of trauma that causes her to sleep run. You know, like how people sleepwalk, she takes it an extra step further and fucking runs. You know, she goes to sleep and wakes up in the middle of the woods. It's that sort of thing. It's terrifying. But yeah, that's the vibe. That's what we're going with. Her coach had noticed that she's coming to practice really tired, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? And she's like, I run in my sleep, sue me. He kind of doesn't really like her. She's a bit moody, she's a bit aggressive, and she also runs in her sleep, and how dare she run in her sleep. But we get a romance between the two of them. It's another coach athlete moment, but it's set in college. Afterwards, I read Bound by Duty by Cora Riley. I absolutely adore this cover, but I do not adore the pages that lie beneath. This book was boring, and I think the reason why is because the character that this follows, it follows Dante and Valentina, and Dante is like, I think, Arya's uncle, and Arya is in Bound by Honor, and I care so much about Arya and her siblings. I do not care about anyone else in the universe, so I didn't really care about the characters, and therefore I don't really care about this book. And I think that the like trope, it's like kind of an arranged marriage, but it's about the girl like wants to be loved by the guy, but the guy's too caught up on his dead ex-wife, and it's like, I don't give a fuck. After that, I read Still Beating by Jennifer Hartman. This book is good, or the first half of this book is good, and when you've read the book, you know that's kind of a messed up thing to say, and I thought the second half was a little bit boring, but I still gave the book 4 stars. Like, it was still intriguing. It's about these 2 people who kind of hate each other. Also, the guy is the girl's sister's fiance, so, you know, a little bit forbidden, a little bit of spice added in the mix. They end up getting kidnapped. That happens within, like, the first 5 chapters. They end up getting kidnapped, and they are, like, held in this place, and they're forced to do stuff, and it's kind of gross, but I feel like you get quite a lot of character development from that. I then read Bound by Hatred. I gave this book on Goodreads, it says I gave this book 3 stars, which I find very interesting because I feel like I like this book more than Still Beating, but I'm gonna keep it at 3 stars. I'm sure there was a reason behind it. Following Gianna and Matteo. Gianna is Arya's sister, so obviously I care about the characters now. Also, Matteo is Luca's brother. They're both in Bound by Honor. Gianna is kind of like a bad bitch, does not want to be part of the mafia. She ends up actually running away, and that's like a big what the no, you are gonna get disowned now. And I loved it. It was great, it was fun, it was excellent. It's also kind of enemies to lovers because Gianna does not like Matteo, but Matteo is kind of still infatuated with Gianna and wants to marry her, but she's like, no, I'm running away. Bound by Temptation. I also absolutely adore this cover. I love the last cover as well. This book, we are following Liliana and Romero. Liliana is Gianna and Arya's sister. Romero is Luca's bodyguard. Since like Liliana is like very high ranked in Mafia, obviously, because she is the daughter of it's called like Consigliere, something like that. She's the daughter of like the second-hand man of the Chicago Mafia, and Romero is just a bodyguard. So we've got a little bit of like a hierarchy issue that we've got going on in here, and I loved it. I loved it so much. There's also an age gap in this book as well. I don't know if the age gap is actually that big, but there is an age gap in it. I love this book. There is a scene in this book that I think about very fondly. It's not a scene that you think it will be. It's like they're at a wedding and they're trying to escape. There's like a little bit of confrontation between between the sisters and their brother, because the brother is part of obviously the Chicago Mafia, but all the sisters, since they all got married, are all part of the New York Mafia. So there's a little bit of I love it. I loved it. I loved that so much. I have to talk about the absolute mess that is Banned by Vengeance. I hated this book. This book has characters that literally have like no connection to the other characters in the series, and so I'm not attached. I don't care, and so I gave this book 2 stars. It was terrible. But then we get the absolute excellence that is Banned by Love. This is Luca and Arya's second book, and this book is amazing. It's incredible. It's fantastic. Things happen in the other books that I'm reading, and I'm like, I want to see this from their perspective. Get it in their perspective here. You get a little bit more. After Banned by Love, I read one of my favourite books of all time. If you know, I mentioned this in my best books of 2022. It's Long Shot by Kennedy Ryan. I've spoken about this book so much, I feel like, but this is genuinely, oh my god, this is such a beautiful book. But it's also like such a painful book, but it is so good. Literally, it's so much more than just a sports romance. They meet in a bar and they get along so well, but then Iris tells August that she's got a boyfriend, and it turns out Iris's boyfriend is August's basketball rival. He's very physically abusive with Iris, so trigger warning for that going into the book. It is quite heavy, but I really did like this book. I love this book. 5 stars, literally probably even 6 stars. It was really, really good. Then read Twisted Loyalties by Cora Riley. This is the first book in the Camorra Chronicles. Most people prefer these to Born in Blood. I do not. I think they're kind of bad, or they're just like a lot more forgettable than Bound by Honor, Bound by Hatred, Bound by Temptation, and Bound by Love. Those are like some standout literature, and these books are kind of boring, but we'll look past it. This is following Fabiano, who is Arya, Gianna, and Liliana's brother, and he ends up getting like, actually, is that a spoiler? Maybe I won't tell you the start of this book. You just read the other books and then you'll get to this one and you'll get it. I read Ruckus by LJ Shen. This is book, I mean, it is book 2, but there's also like Before Vicious, there's like a little novella, whatever. Book 2 in Sinners of Saints. This is following Rosie and Dean. I actually do remember this book a lot more than I expected to, because I do not remember Vicious to save my life. The girl in Vicious, who I think is called Amelia, it's her sister. It's Vicious's best friend. The guy in this book used to be Amelia's boyfriend when they were teenagers. Rosie in this book is sick. I think she has cystic fibrosis, but I actually cannot remember. I won't lie to you. So she's kind of like closed off from loving. She also kind of finds the guy kind of annoying, even though she also used to have a crush on him when she was younger. I actually kind of like this book. I gave it 3 stars. It was pretty good. I don't remember too much about it. Anyways, back to Cora Riley. I read Twisted Emotions. I gave this book 4 stars. This is the best book in the Camorra Chronicles that I've read. So take it from me, like, this one is really good. We're following Nino and Kiara. I love these two so much. Nino is like kind of a sociopath. He has like no emotions. He doesn't understand what love is. I think Kiara's like in danger, so she like marries into the mafia to like be safe. She like wants to be loved, I think, but obviously he like does not understand the concept of love at all. Afterwards I read Sweet Temptation by Cora Riley as well. This is a standalone novel, but it takes place in the same universe as the Born in Blood Camorra situation shape that we've got going on right here. I did give this book 5 stars when I first read it. I've now given it 4. You're just gonna have to live with it. This is still a very good book. I think it's Julia. She's like very young at the beginning of this book, but she gets arranged to be married to this guy called, I think, Cassio, and it's because Cassio's wife died. Cassio has like 2 children and he can't take care of them and do his mafia duties. He needs a wife to do all that for him, and so he finds one in the name of Julia. Julia's just caring for the children, and he thinks because she's really young that she knows nothing about motherhood, which is a very fair point, which is actually very good, and he gets kind of attracted to it. Let's move on. Kings of Rittenhouse. I read the novella first. It was fine. It's really short, and I think it honestly adds nothing to the rest of the books. Actually, that's kind of a lie. It introduces a plot point that becomes very important in the 3rd book, but you could also read the 3rd book without reading this and you would be absolutely fine. So I guess it's like an Easter egg thing. I don't know. After that I read Twisted Pride by Cora Riley. It's a like kidnapping romance. I thought it was very boring. See, I'm very anti-Camorra. Serafina gets kidnapped on her wedding day by Remo, who is like the main guy of the Chicago Mafia. He's like that big in the Chicago Mafia world. This is like crazy shit, okay? It was fine. It was honestly kind of boring. I read Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This was the Emily Henry new release of 2022, so of course I read it. This book is fine, but again, like, everyone who I see have read this book loves it. It's not that good. I thought it was very average. We're following Nora. Nora is such an Emily Henry name. It's like kind of a small town romance, but it's also kind of not. It was fine. It was just nothing special. I know Emily Henry has never delivered read me anything special, but she's done it in her own special Emily Henry way. She didn't do it with this book, sorry. We'll move on with Shameless King by Maya Hughes. Yeah, I have the illustrated covers, the discreet covers. My favourite book in the series. It's so good. It's a really good intro. It's amazing. It literally gave such similar vibes to The Deal, and The Deal's my favourite book of all time. It's obviously not as good, let's not get ahead of ourselves, but I still very much liked it. Oh my god, what the fuck even happens in this book? My mind is going blank. Obviously he's on the hockey team, look at the picture. Hello, it's an ice hockey romance, it's set in college. But they both have not liked each other since high school. They've been kind of antis, just for the sake of being antis. I don't know. She used to go to a different university, but then in her like, are we in senior year? I have no idea. She ends up transferring back to whatever university these lot go to. I have no idea. I've read like 5 books in the series. I have no clue what uni they go to. But she ends up transferring. And apparently every single person in this university has to do this class, which I find very strange because not everyone's majoring in the same subject. Why do we all have to do this one class? I don't get it. Whatever. It's called sophomore seminar. So like all the sophomores, every sophomore ever has to do it. She's obviously just transferred, so of course she hasn't done it. Somehow he just didn't do it. I don't understand either. So they both have to go into this class, and obviously because the rest of the class are sophomores, they're going to get paired together because they're the only non-sophomores. Does not make any sense to me because there must be other people who have transferred to this university that aren't sophomores. Makes no sense, but in the name of fiction we look past it. A romance blossoms from there, from them obviously being forced proximity into working with each other, and it is really good. I'm going to give you that. I'm going to give you this, Maya Hughes. It was good. Next we read Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. I thought this book was boring. It was so long. It's ridiculously long actually. It's a small town romance about this girl who's running away from her old life. Everyone thinks she's her twin sister, and her twin sister is an absolute menace, but she also has no money, no family, 16 in the middle of Miami. So that's fun. You want to know what happens? Read the book. I'm not telling you. It was shit. After that I read Scandalous by L.J. Shane. This is book 3 in Citizens of Saints. I like this book. It's single dad. It's very good. This is my favourite book in the series. It is really good. Ugh. Following Edie and Trent, the beginning of this book is amazing. Edie ends up like trying to like steal something off of Trent or his mother whilst he's around, and he ends up catching her and like holds her against the wall. We get one of those scenes. It's amazing, but what we don't know, what we end up finding out, is that Edie's dad owns the company that all of these Sinners of Saints boys work for, because I swear like at the end of Ruckus they end up like selling all of their shares in this company that they own to this guy. So like this guy owns like 95% and then each of the guys owns like 1%, something along the sorts. Anyways, the guy who owns 95% is the father of the main girl in this book, Boss's daughter, but it's also single dad. I don't really recommend the other books in the series. Ruckus is fine, Vicious I don't remember, and then Bane we'll get onto in a minute, but I like genuinely would recommend this one out of all of them. It's my favourite one. I then obviously had to finish the series and I read Bane. This book I don't remember a lot of. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. The guy in this book I think is like friends with Edie, who was obviously in the last book that I just mentioned. I think the girl in this book is like kind of like an outcast. She has no friends, and so I think her dad pays him to be friends with her, and so obviously you can tell what the third act conflict's gonna be. I might have made that up. I just have no clue, but like that's what I think this book's about, so that's what we're going with. Random aside, just in case you're wondering, this is my Addicted / Calloway sister stack. That's Addicted to You, that's a long way down. I've got Some Kind of Perfect here. After Bane I then read Tristic's Venom by Penelope Douglas. I love this book. I absolutely love this book. You know me and Penelope Douglas, we are like this at times. Sometimes you'll see in the future of this video, sometimes we are not like this, we are actually like anti. But with this book, with a lot of their standalones, we are like this. I did a video where I ranked all of Penelope Douglas's standalones from my least favourite to my favourite. You can watch that video for more insight. I really like this book. It's very good. It's very long, but it's very good. New adult high school bully romance. It's also sapphic. I need more sapphic rights, but I want like new adult / adult sapphics. Most of the sapphic romance that I see online are all YA, illustrated covers. I need indie published new adult or adult, even if it's set in high school, but like new adult high school, independently published sapphics. If anyone has any, please let me know. I already have Vibe by Liza James on my list of books that I want to read. I need more. After reading absolute excellence like Tristic's Venom, I then went into some absolute snooze fest. You might know it, it's quite a popular book. It's called Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This book was fine. It was boring though. I gave it 3 stars. What the fuck ever. Do I need to talk about it? No, because you already know what it's about, but just in case you didn't, it's a childhood friends to lovers, but they have like 11 years where they never see each other because for a very valid situation that happens. Yeah, when they were like kids, they like have a summer house, they like read a lot, something happens, and the girl is like, "F you, bitch." We don't see each other for 11 years, and then we see each other in like a coffee shop, and we're like, oh my god. Let's move on, because the next book I read was absolute excellence. One of the best books of the year. One of the best books of my entire life, but it obviously wasn't the deal. Egotistical Book by Eden Finley Saxon James. I talk about this book in my Best Books of 2022 video. This book's amazing. This book is absolutely amazing. It's enemies with benefits. It's an adult ice hockey romance. At the beginning of this book, they are rivals. They don't like each other, but then literally in like the first like 3 chapters, something happened. They have like a little argument. One of them's drunk, so we end up driving him back to our place, and we have a cute enemies with benefits moment, and it just keeps going from there. I am reading a book right now that is so similar to this book, and so I need to just like let you all know in my January wrap up, I've got another book that is just like this. So if you've read this book and you love it, you need to read the book that I'm reading right now. Oh my god, I love this book so much. It's amazing. Please everyone read it. If you like romances, if you like ice hockey, just do it all. It's so good. I hold it near and dear to my heart. This is like one of the best books ever. My phone is 20%, so if I die, I need to hurry up though, because I'm only in June, so that's great. The next book I read was Blockshot by Kennedy Ryan. This book is terrible. I gave this book 2 stars. This is literally like, oh my god, it's so bad. And it's kind of like a second chance romance, because something happens at the beginning that causes them to break up. Whatever, you can read it if you want to find out. They are sports managers, so it's like kind of a sports romance, kind of not, because they're not sports people. They just manage people who do the sport, and that's all I'm going to talk about, because I hated this book. I thought it was terrible. Sorry, Kennedy Ryan. You had a good run with Longshot, but then the series just went downhill. After that, I read Twisted Bonds by Cora Riley. I think this is Nino and Kiara's second book, so you know my favourite book, Twisted Emotions, the absolute legends. I think this is their second book, but obviously you need to read the other book to read this one. The books in this series, if a character or if a couple has a second book, it's a lot more plot focused, but it's still very good to just be back in the minds of my faves. See how my faves get the 2 books, Luca and Arya, Nino and Kiara. My faves get the second books. I then read Banned by the Past by Cora Riley. I hated this book. It was boring. However, do you know how I just say, see how my faves get 2 books? This is following the same couple from Banned by Duty, and you already know that I don't care about those 2. So I didn't care about these 2 again in this book. So maybe my faves don't always get second book. I would have preferred a Liliana and Romero second book, but it's fine. I'll live with this. I stepped back into my literary fiction girly era, and I read My Dad Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. This book was fine. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. It was okay. Again, I'm not a literary fiction girly, unfortunately. Sometimes I wish I was, but I'm not. We're gonna have to live with it. Please, like, just live, survive. That's all I'm gonna talk about, because I don't want to talk about it anymore. Next book, I'm gonna talk about all 3 of these together. I read 50 Shades. I read all 3 50 Shades books, one after another, and it was something. It was something. The first 2 books I gave 2 stars. It was boring. It was terrible. It was so bad. But the third book, maybe it's because I was in this universe for an extended period of time, but I loved it and I gave it 3 stars. Okay, loved it and gave it 3 stars does not make sense, but obviously I need to ground myself in the fact that this is 50 Shades that we are talking about. It is not excellent. It is not actually that good, but compared to the other 2, this was like actually like very interesting, very good. I applaud E.L. James for actually writing this one, because you have like some of the worst characters ever, the worst plot ever, the worst book ever, but then you like do something pretty good with it. I'm kind of proud of you for that. We then jump into Irresponsible Puck Boy by Eden Finley Saxon James, the second book in the Puck Boy series. I still haven't read the third book, which is called Shameless Puck Boy. I read this book. I gave this book 4 stars. This book is still very good. Eden Finley Saxon James, what the kind of crack do you put into this series? Because the 2 books that I've read so far have been absolutely incredible. I need to read the third one. I know it's like a friends to lovers kind of thing. They have to like fake date each other because they have a marriage of convenience. Is that a spoiler? Maybe. I don't care. Just read it. This is really good. After that, I read The Game. This is a collection of novellas, but it's like a series. It's a dark romance, obviously. I'm sorry that the lighting is really full. It's about this girl who's like losing her house, but then she gets a letter for like an interview with this guy who basically tells her that she can win like this massive amount of money if she gives herself over to these 2 men and lives with them for like 7 days. You get a lot of morality questions that she has to answer and actually like carry out. It's very good, very interesting. After that, I read one of the worst series in romance book history. It's the Ravenhood trilogy by Kate Stewart. Here's the thing, these covers are stunning. These books are f***ing awful. I literally am incapable of giving a book 1 star. This one I gave 3 stars, Exodus, because this was actually very good. I was entertained and I thought the romance in this book was excellent, but the rest of the books were all absolutely awful. I have no idea what's going on. I honestly kind of want to reread this series just to like see if I can find out what is going on. Is there something wrong with me, or is the book actually just terrible? I read Reckless King by Maya Hughes. I gave this book 3 stars. It is actually quite good though. It's about Heath and Cara. They have like a one night stand, but they go go to the same university, so like they end up bumping into each other, and she ends up becoming his tutor, but like an official kind of way, not just like a, oh my god, I'll tutor you, not in like an official way that makes it kind of taboo for them to be together in a relationship. I don't know, you kind of need to read the book to like understand what the hell I'm trying to get at here. But I actually really like this one, so I do recommend. Afterwards I read Say You Swear by Megan Brandy. This is a great book. I just lied. It's actually kind of terrible. It's kind of boring. It's really long as well. Why is this book so long? I don't get it. But I read it. It was alright. Something happens like near the end, like the third act, I thought was terrible. You gotta look past it sometimes. I then read Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. This book is absolutely incredible, amazing. It deserves all of the hype that it has been getting recently. Everyone should read this book. However, not everyone, because it is a toxic romance and it's barely a romance, but it's so good. It's like high society London, old money. VJ Magnolia are so toxic for each other, but like they also, ugh, I love them. It's like childhood lovers to break up lovers, but like there's so much drama in this book, and that's why I love it. It's like, this is a book that, this is just Messy Boots. If Messy Boots was a book, it's this one. It's so good. After that I read Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. This book was actually very, very good. I was surprised because I read the first chapter of this book and I was like, I don't think I'm gonna get the humour, but I kind of got the humour. It was quite good. It's fake dating, that's all I'm gonna tell you. I'm not gonna say anything else. I read Twisted Love and Twisted Games by Anna Huang. I read the other books as well. Actually, I read Twisted Hate within this era, so I'm gonna hold up Twisted Hate as well, but I read Twisted Lies a little bit later. I read these three books. Love Twisted Love. Oh my god, I absolutely love Twisted Love. We're following Ava and Alex. This is a brother's best friend romance. Grumpy Sunshine as well. It gets a little bit out of hand around the third act conflict era. Also, why the does he sing for her? Sometimes we just have to move on with our lives and not question it. The second book is called Twisted Games. This book is a little bit longer. This book is also a little bit worse, in my opinion. That's because I don't like the royalty trope, and the girl in this book is like a princess. Okay, Twisted Lies. This book is even longer. Enemies with Benefits, but it's actually pretty good. I gave Love and Hate 4 stars. This one we're following Alex and Jules. Is it Alex? Nope, it's Josh. I was literally like Alex Chen. No, Josh. Josh and Jules. Enemies with Benefits. It is actually really good though. There's also like a whole storyline with a painting in this book which gets brought up in Twisted Lies, and I assume may get brought up in King of Wrath. Just like, oh my god. Like, they keep talking about how ugly this painting is. I don't give a Then I read Forbidden Mafia Prince by Ella Frank and Brooke Blaine. This is a mafia romance. This is the first mafia romance I've ever read, so I was really excited for it. It's also by my queens, Ella Frank and Brooke Blaine. You know, I love their XOXO Gossip Girl. They wrote the Elite trilogy, so like, I want to give a go a lot of things that they've written together. I will say I gave this book 3 stars. It was alright, but it was kind of boring. I'm going to move on now and talk about Misfit by Elle Kennedy. My phone is dying. That is why I'm rushing, and I'm only in July. Misfit by Elle Kennedy really surprised me because obviously she wrote a Good Girl Complex and everyone hated it. I've never read that book, but I'm going to say as she should because it sounds terrible. But it's a new adult high school romance and it's like boarding school, and I was like, this is shaping up to be something excellent, and it was really good. There's a lot of perspectives in this book. There's a lot of POVs. The central romance is between RJ and Sloane. I wouldn't mind rereading this book before the next book comes out, but we'll cross that bridge when I get to it. I might be lazy and just read Rogue and see what I think. Afterwards I read Misconduct by Penelope Douglas. I like this one, but it wasn't as good as their indie published romances. It's between a teacher and a student's parent. The girl is the teacher and the guy is the father of a student. I think he's also the mayor of this town that they live in. I'm not going to explain anything else because I don't think I need to. After that I read Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. I won't lie to you guys, I do not like the Daisy Hates side of the Magnolia Parks universe, but this book was alright. I gave it 4 stars. Like, it wasn't bad by any means. It's just that the Magnolia Parks side of the universe is incredible, and you see why it's called the Magnolia Parks universe, because Magnolia Parks is that big and she does everything right. Daisy Hates, however, ugh. I'm reading the second Daisy Hates book right now and it is such a drag. Hopefully it picks up. Hopefully I just need to like commit more time to it. After that I read Burnout by Coralie June. I don't remember much about this book. I gave it 2 stars. It was awful. It's brother's best friend, but it's also teacher student. Tropes on tropes on tropes. If You Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan is supposed to be really sad. You find out the really sad thing right at the beginning of the book, literally in the prologue. So was I attached to the characters? No. That take that I just mentioned kind of serves to be a bit of a plot hole for a future book that I read, but let's ignore that until we cross that bridge. P.S. I Loathe You is an Enemy Silver's romance, which also has the trope of talking online but not knowing who you're talking to online. It is really good, but it's like nothing serious. It's just just really fun, and that is why I liked it and gave it 4 stars. I feel like I summed up the book pretty well. I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy is the only non-fiction book that I read this year, but I basically read this book because I'm actually interested in Jeanette McCurdy and her life. So I read this book and it is kind of heartbreaking, but it's also so interesting to read about. It gives a lot of insight in what she was going through during her childhood, and also her like rise to fame and kind of her disdain for acting, and I found that very interesting. After that, I read Husband Material by Alexis Hall. It's a sequel to Boyfriend Material. I don't have it in paperback, as you can see, even though I have Boyfriend Material, and that is because this book is garbage, and I'm not going to explain why, just trust me on it. After that, I read Wicked Lies Boys Tell. This is another Enemies to Lovers high school romance. I don't really remember it, but I gave it 3 stars, so it must have been alright. I don't remember a lot about that book, but I do remember a lot about this next book because it is Magnolia Park's The Long Way Home, one of my faves. I gave this book 5 stars. It honestly deserves 6. It's so good. It's obviously like a direct continuation from the first Magnolia Park's book. I love it. I just love these characters so much. The found family in this series. Oh my god, I just love this. I love this. This book is so much more stressful than the first one, though, in my opinion. It's so much more stressful. It's so much more painful. It's so much more like, get your acts together, guys. I love it so much, and I love the characters. I really cannot film long videos like this because I think my aura just changes in the middle of it. Like, I feel like I'm filming this video a lot differently to how I started, but maybe that's because my phone's dying and I'm feeling a little bit stressed about it. I read Love on the Brain by Ali Hazelwood. We need to teach a dog new tricks sometimes. You're not a one-trick pony, Ali Hazelwood. I believe in you. It's actually not that similar to The Love Hypothesis, but like it is because it's Grumpy Sunshine. My iPhone storage got full. I literally used up like over 100 gigabytes. I believe I was talking about how this book is basically a carbon copy of The Love Hypothesis, which is kind of a little bit far-fetched because it's not, but like Ali Hazelwood, when you write 2 books back to back about a Grumpy Sunshine scientist, they don't like each other but they also secretly love each other. It's ran through. It is dry. You need something new to write about. After that, I read Hookshot by Kennedy Ryan. I feel like I might have called her Elle Kennedy when I spoke about Blockshot, but I can't remember, so that's really awkward if I did. I like this book more than Blockshot, but like that doesn't take away from the fact that this book was bad. Let's move on. Then I read Playing Games by Riley Hart. This is a really fond memory for me because I just loved reading this book. I had so much fun. I gave it 4 stars. It's book 1 in the Franklin New series, which I'm still reading right now. I've got 1 more book and then I finished. I read this book in August. It's an romance series all set in this one university. Obviously companion novels, right? Braxton is like the guy on the cover, you know, leather jacket, bad boy, and then the other guy, he plays lacrosse maybe, but this book is really good. There's this one specific scene that involves them 2 smoking weed that I will always remember because it was just really sweet when I read it, so I love this book. I have very fond memories of reading it. After that, I read Fragile Longing by Cora Riley. This is again another standalone that takes place in the Bonnie and Blood Kamara Chronicles universe. That is why I call it the Mafiaverse of Madness, or even the Multiverse of Mafia, if you will. Whichever one has a better ring, I don't know. Serafina from Twisted Pride, it's about her sister and the guy that Serafina was supposed to marry but got kidnapped at the wedding. It's about her sister and that guy falling in love. That's all I'm going to tell you. I gave it 3 stars. It was alright. Speaking of 3 stars, Ruthless Kings. Remember when I was talking about the Kings of Rittenhouse novella and I said, oh, you know, it kind of sets up for the 3rd book. This is the 3rd book. This is a second chance romance between Avery and Emmett. In the Kings of Rittenhouse novella, spoiler alert, they like break up, but that book is also set in high school. We're in like senior year of university here, okay? Like times passed. They used to be high school sweethearts, then something happened and we're like, what the fuck happened? You find out in the book what happened and they end up obviously reconnecting as you do in a second chance romance. We have Corrupt by Penelope Douglas. This is where we get let down because I didn't like this series that much at all. I thought it was very underwhelming considering like the hype that surrounds it. The book has some cute scenes, but as a whole it's kind of bad. 3 stars. It wasn't like horrible, like I was expecting better and I got worse. After that, I read The American Roommate Experiment by Elena Armas. Why? I have no idea because I read The Spanish Love Deception the year before and thought it was terrible, so why I expected anything different, I have no idea. It was terrible. I don't want to talk about it. Next, I read Twisted Hearts. Don't remember a single thing about this book. I think the guy in this book is like a player and he also like fights in the ring. That's all I remember. Let's move on. Sinful Mafia Prince, book 2 in the duet by Ella Frank and Brooke Blaine. It was fine. There was really cute scenes in, I think they were in Italy in this book. It was like cute. Not really a lot of plot. Here's the thing. Book 1, too much plot, not enough romance. Book 2, there wasn't that much plot, but it was still good. It was very cute, very, very cute romantic scenes. Like, I would rather have the romance than the plot, so I like this book more than book 1. Next, I read The Royalty Crew duet, which consists of a Savage Queen and Ruthless Noble. This was like really, random, but Savage Queen was really good. I loved it so much. It's a new adult high school, kind of enemies to lovers romance, kind of about this girl who used to go to this one school, but then ended up moving to go to the rival school, and no one knows who she is. They know that she's like in with the crowd at the rival school, and they're like, how the f do you know these people? It sounds a bit iffy when you explain it. It was like something for the vibes, right? Like, I read this book not expecting to like find anything good, you know. I wanted something trash, and I really enjoyed it. I gave the first one 4 stars, second one 3 stars. I'm in July right now. I think my first ever wrap up on this channel was in June, so like all of these books I'm talking about now until I get to December, because I obviously haven't done a December wrap up, and I'm not going to, because that's what this video basically is at the end. You can hear me talk about the other books in more detail in those videos. I read Twisted Lies. I wanted to wait. Obviously I know I talked about the first 3 Twisted books, but that's because I read them all one after another after another. I waited a while and I read this one. I like this one. This is potentially my second favourite. It's not potentially, it definitely is my second favourite after Twisted Love. We're following Christian and Stella. So there's an influencer. Christian is like a billionaire. They fake date because Stella needs more Instagram followers. She wants to get that Millie. She wants that Millie. Millie got Millies because Millie got hits. He wants to like seem like he's like down to earth. He settles down. He's more of an approachable guy. People want to do more business with him. That's the haps. Each book in the series keeps getting longer, and Juan will put the pen down. Put the pen down. This book is good, but it's so long, man. Put the pen down. I know I said I was very underwhelmed with Corrupt, but I was like, I've started this series, I'm gonna finish it. I read the rest of the Devil's Night series one after another after another after another. So we have Hideaway here, Kyan Banks' story. It was literally focused more around Damon than anyone else. Who gives a f. I hate Damon, if you couldn't tell. Back to this next book is about Kill Switch. This is Damon and Winter. Then I read Conclave. Believe it or not, this could be my favourite book in the series, and it's not even a book, it's a fucking novella. Then I read Nightfall. This book is absolutely huge. There's no reason. It's only like 730 pages, but it looks like 1,000. My favourite book of all time might be A Little Life, but still. It is my favourite book in the series though, but I did only give it, I gave it 4 stars, yeah. The book is quite good. It's also my favourite cover of these new covers. The old covers, I wish I had them, but it's fine. Finite. I have nothing against this. I just thought it was boring. Let's move on. Let's stop talking about Devil's Night now. It just makes me upset. I'm nearly done. We are in October. I read The Dating Disaster by Saxon James. This is book 2 in the Franklin New series. If you can hear background noise, I don't give a fuck. We're powering through. We are powering the fuck through now. I gave this book 4 stars. I remember really liking it. Do I remember what it's about? Fuck no. In the first chapter, these 2 characters are on a date. It's not going well. One of the guys is like a player. The other one is like a virgin. Then they end up being roommates and they end up falling in love. That's all I've got to say. Icebreaker by Hannah Grace is so overrated. I gave it 3 stars. It was fine. I did like it. It went on a little bit too long. If it was like 100 pages shorter, this would be 4 stars. But it wasn't, so it's 3 stars. It's about a hockey player and a figure skater. Something happens to one of their ice rinks at this university. They have 2, but something happens at one of them. So they have to share the ice rink, and this is like the biggest travesty that ever hit the entire universe. It was fun. It was just too long. A lot of jealousy scenes though. It starts with Us Then came out, and I read it, and it was great. It was great. I really enjoyed it. I know a lot of people say it was a cash grab. It absolutely was. There's no denying that. It was not needed. It was a cash grab, but I still enjoyed it. I like Atlas and Lily together. I didn't like Atlas in the first book, but I like him in this book. I then read Fearless King by Maya Hughes. This is book 4 in the Kings of Rittenhouse series. We are so close to finishing this series, guys. This book I actually did like. I remember actually really liking this one. I gave it 3 stars. It is about Bod and Olivia. It's best friend's little sister, or I guess brother's best friend, if you want to look at it in the other direction. I always think of the guys as the main characters in these books though. I did like it. It was just very predictable with the plot. It's about the girl in this book is like studying to be a doctor, but she doesn't want to be a doctor, but there's so much pressure on her to be a doctor. Like, guess what the third act conflict is, and guess what the outcome is. You know what I mean? Very predictable. I then read Heartless King. This is the final book. I know I finished this series. I completed a series this year. Wow. This one was just like pressing on me. It felt like for ages to get this series finished, but I did. I hated this book. I think this is my least favourite in the series. I gave it 2 stars. I'm not going to talk about it. The guy in this book is the brother of the girl in the last book. So you know when I said it was brother's best friend? His best friend. I then read Mr. Romance. I gave this book 4 stars as well. It was very funny. It's about this guy who apparently everyone thinks that they're dating him because he's just really nice. Because he's just a decent human being. Everyone thinks they're dating him. And so he needs to try and let everyone down gently and say, no, we are not in a relationship. We've like never kissed. It's really far-fetched, but that's kind of what makes it really funny. There's this guy on campus who is called Mr. Romance because he gives dating advice. He goes to Mr. Romance to get like opposite advice, if that makes any type of sense. It's really good. Far-fetched, but really good. And then I Bet You by Neve Wilder. This is the next book in Franklin New series. Don't remember a single thing about this book. Let's move on. I read The Sinner by Kelsey Clayton. First book in the Haven Grace Prep series. This book is fucking incredible. The first like 70% of this book was something to behold. It was so good. What I was craving at good time. New adult high school enemies to lovers romance. It's so good. So good. We're following this guy called Grayson. I have no idea what the girl's called, but her last name is Montgomery, so I want to call her Aria so bad, but her name's obviously not Aria. It's Savannah. So Savannah and Grayson used to be like best friends when they were like 8 years old, but then something happened. The boy moves away, and then they're in like final year of high school. The boy moves back with the sole intention of trying to ruin Savannah's life because of what she did to him when they were 8. Far-fetched, stupid, but I was craving it at the time, and so I gave it 4 stars and I thought it was incredible. Next I read The Glow Up. This is by A.M. Johnson, another book in the Franklin New series, another book that I have absolutely no recollection of reading, and therefore I'm not going to talk about it. Let's move on. Binding and Keeping 13 by Chloe Walsh. These books are absolutely massive, but I will say they are very, very good. These 2 books follow the same couple. Found family is incredible in this book, however, very big trigger warnings for abuse. Shannon comes from a very abusive household and it is quite graphic. The next book in the series, which is following, I think, potentially Shannon's brother, comes out on Valentine's Day, so get these books read before Valentine's Day. I then present to you Full Tilt and All In by Emma Scott. This is a duet. I read both of these books as well in November. Full Tilt, I love. I gave this book 4 stars. It was really good. Yes, this book is sad, and yes, you find out why it's sad from the first page, but unlike If I Never Met You, I actually felt really attached to these characters because they were just really likeable and really good, and I loved it so much. Also, If I Never Met You is YA, so that's probably also why I didn't like it, because I hate YA. I didn't realise it was YA going into it. All In, I didn't like. I can't tell you why, because you have to read Full Tilt to understand what All In is about, and I'm going to move on. These are all the books that I read in December, by the way, so I'm not doing a December reading wrap-up, but if I was, this is what would happen. I started the month off with After We Fell. I actually didn't. I started the month off with All In, but I wanted to talk about them 2 together. But I then went into After We Fell. This book is huge. Whatever, it's Wattpad. We have to let it slide. This book was fine. I think this is my favourite book in the series. That's all I'm going to say. After that, I read After Ever Happy. There's nothing to say about this book. I'm sick of these characters. I gave this one 2 stars. Who gives a anymore? I'm not reading before. You can't make me read before. Do I have the physical copy? Yes. I finished the After series. I'm not reading before. I don't need a prequel. I do not need a prequel. Learning Curve. I remember actually kind of liking this book, but I can't remember what it's about. I know it's about, I think they're roommates. I don't know what this book's about. I've put in my bookshelves, I put it in Forced Proximity, Friends to Lovers, Sports Romance. So that's all I've got to say. And then we're at the final book I read of the year. The final book read of the year. I still have 2 rereads that I need to talk about. We'll talk about that after. The final book of the year that I read was Making Waves by Christina Lee. Again, Franklin Yu. It's brother's best friend. The couple, they like knew each other in high school because obviously it's brother's best friend. So they knew each other when they were younger in high school. They had like a fling then. Obviously the brother didn't know about it. The 2 brothers, they're like family, have like split up. And so there's a little bit of tension between the 2 brothers, which means that being in a relationship with your best friend's brother makes it a bit awkward. Does that make any type of sense? He's also a swimmer, so it's a sports romance. That's fun. Let's move on. Let's talk about the rereads that I read. Let's talk about the obvious one. Hello. Of course I read The Deal. I read this book every year now since I first read it in 2021, so of course I read it in 2022. And I will be reading it in 2023. I reread it with the intention of tabbing and annotating it. I love this book more than literally words can say. It's my favourite book in the entire world, so of course I reread it. I don't need to say anything else about it because you already know what it's about, but if you don't, we're following Garrett and Hannah. They both do this like economics class, and they do like an exam, and everyone basically fails except Hannah, who gets a very good grade. Garrett, if he fails this class, is going to get kicked off the ice hockey team, and he's like, that is like the only reason I survive. I cannot do that. So he gets Hannah to tutor him, and they make a deal that if she tutors him, he will fake date her to make guys jealous and want her. The other book that I reread, 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Love this book as well. Again, haven't annotated it. That is why I read this book. I'm sure you already know what this book is about. I gave this book 5 stars. Do I need to say I obviously gave the other book, The Deal, 6 stars. It's incredible. Do I need to say what this book's about? I don't think I do. Evelyn Hugo is like this very famous movie actress, think like Marilyn Monroe era type fame, and she has requested this very specific, very niche journalist to come and write her like memoir about her love life. Actually, it's more of like a biography, but like I guess a memoir is a biography with purpose, like with a theme, and the theme of this memoir is love. So I guess it is a memoir, not just biography. Either way, we're talking about Miss Girl's life, and so we basically switch perspectives between the journalist, who is called Monique, and Evelyn Hugo in the past, recounting her life. Those are all 105 books. Imagine that actually wasn't 105 books. I don't know, I don't care. That's what Goodreads is telling me. I'm exhausted. I've been sat here for over 2 hours. My room is a mess. My bookshelves are a mess. But I hope you guys all enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like. Comment down below if you've read any of these books, if any of these books are on your TBR, if you like them, book recs. Subscribe if you like romance books. And I will see you in like 5 years, because this has taken the life out of me. I understand why when people film these videos, they just like tell you the title, author and star rating. I will do that next year. I'll see you all another time whenever I'm ready. Goodbye. Peace out.